current challenges so that we are in this thing together. Let me allow my co-chair to do the opening remarks before we can allow the core business in terms of what we have in this presentation. Honorable Frolik.
No, thank you, Honorable Nyambi, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and also to the staff and the councillors who are here. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. No, but councillors are not honorable. Call them Speaker. You're only honorable when you're in Parliament. Councillors, what do you call them, Speaker?
Honorable councillors. We call them honorable councillors.
How things change. Let me see.
We call them honorable councillors.
How things change. How things change. Let me see. How things change. They are honorable. They are honorable. No, thank you very much. Thank you. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Informed that we've been informed that out of the country. You were out of the country. You were traveling from Brussels, and that you are sitting with a bit of a cold, a flu, but you made time to be here. Thank you very much for that. Also to the Speaker, the office have informed us that your office especially was very helpful in arranging this visit that is taking place. Now, we are an Ad Hoc Committee of Joint Houses of Parliament that was established in terms of a House resolution both in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces. Firstly, when the floods struck in KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape and Northwest, and then later on, when other provinces were also affected by it, our mandate was extended. So we reported on the first round, and we will go back to those provinces where we will get a final feedback on what the state of affairs are. As the Honorable Nyambi has said, we're not on a fault-finding mission, but as representatives of the people, it's our responsibility to come and see if the conditions have improved from the time that the flood struck up to now, and what, if any, are the improvements that can be noted, but also the challenges that persist and what could be the reason for those challenges. Because ultimately we must improve the lives of our people. We're not here to represent ourselves, we are here representing the people. We also rely on, and the NCOP have a word, they call it intergovernment relations. Intergovernment relations. It's a big English word, intergovernment. What it basically means is to see how the different spheres of government work together when these type of calamities strike us. And when we were in the Eastern Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, and also in Northwest, one of the things that we did not compromise on was the presence of the political heads of these different tiers of government. And that is, your mayors must be present. While the officials give presentations and things, ultimately the politicians are the elected representatives of the people. The officials are there to give and provide the support role. So I must register our disappointment that the mayor did not see it fit to be here this morning. We would have wanted to see the mayor here, but we'll deal with that in the report that we will be tabling and submitting. Somebody must carry the political responsibility. That is what we've done in those three provinces, and we'll go back to those three provinces, and that is also what we will maintain doing. The political heads, they must carry the ultimate responsibility. They must listen as to what the officials are saying, so that we are not fed stories and different things, while in reality, it's happening elsewhere. I'm not saying that you are going to give us wrong information, but we have encountered, as some of the honorable members who are here will tell you, is that between what is represented by officials, what you see on the ground, and what the politicians told you, it's a completely different story. And there's something that is called the misleading, deliberately misleading parliament, which will have consequences if that should happen. So we are looking forward at a very frank, straightforward. Don't camouflage or try to hide anything, because ultimately our responsibility is to support you with the provincial government so that the conditions of our people can improve. and that the flood disaster can be dealt with as something of the past, and we can focus on the ongoing service delivery challenges that our municipalities across the country is facing. We will thus proceed with the program, co-chairperson, and in terms of the agenda, the first item will be the MEC, who will give us the political input, and then whoever is in support thereof, your MEC will support, give the other information if necessary. But what we loved when we were in Eastern Cape, KZN, and also in Northwest was that the MECs actually do the presentation as well. Or the mayors themselves do the presentation. It shows they internalize what is being presented to us. But thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And I would now like to invite the Honorable MEC Kumalo, to do the necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to put on record that Premier would have written a formal apology to the committee. I hope that the letter was submitted to the committee as such, that is traveling abroad, and that we should proceed to represent the provincial government. Can I have next slide there? The presentation is going to focus on the two matters. The first one being the December flood incident, and the second one being the February flood incident and the recommendation thereof. Next slide. And our purpose is to present the overview report on the two as indicated. Next slide. Next slide. Here we're just indicating the legislative provisions that governs or manages the disaster as it happens in the province. And herein we're referring to the Disaster Management Act and the Fire Brigade Service Capacity Building and Training and Education throughout the province, and provide assistance to national disaster management. In terms of the fire services, it ensures coordinations when there's fire disasters, provide targeted support and include resources that comes from different municipalities, implement national strategic agenda and framework, monitoring and evaluation such disasters or fire, also provide issues of education, training and research and capacity, but also acting as a focal point of urban search and rescue in the province. Next slide. Here we are indicating the different sectors that we are working with together with municipalities, and the provision of the law that guides such sectors as such. Next slide. In terms of the intergovernmental relations that we established in the province since the disaster itself, in Merafong we have established what we call the Merafong Emergency Disaster Management Site, wherein all the provincial departments are part of, and it is focusing on sinkholes that are happening there. It is convened by the province, and it is meeting weekly. We have also the Provincial Sinkhole Steering Committee, which also monitors the management and rehabilitation of the sinkholes within the province as such. We also have the Provincial Disaster Management Advisory Forum, which provides advice to ESCO on disaster-related matters. We also have the Provincial Head of Center Forum, which constituted by heads of municipal disaster management centers, and its work is to ensure management and technical aspect from the practitioners as such. We also have the Provincial Technical Task Team on Merafong Sinkhole intervention, which focuses on coordination of the technical support. Here in different departments do participate. We also have the Fire and Emergency Services Head, which is constituted by chief fire officers from municipalities, whose work is to ensure emergency response whenever we have such activities. We also have the Urban Search and Rescue Team, which is utilized to assist us in search and rescue operations in the province as such. Next slide. Next slide. By way of background, we are making a point there that the province is prone to extreme weather conditions, and that between the 9th and the 12th of December, the province experienced disruptive rainfalls which created infrastructure damages to both public and private properties, loss of lives, and expanded the sinkholes that we have, particularly in dolomitic areas such as the West Rand. We are making a point there that many homes were destroyed out of this, and the fact that this rains exacerbated the current sinkholes and challenges in Merafong, which we'll indicate later on. And the province is underlain by dolomitic areas that affect quite a number of municipalities. Herein we are talking about Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and Mohale City, including the Merafong municipalities. And as we indicated in Merafong, this is very bad. We have done fiscal assessment, which indicated that a total of 3,480 households and about 10,196 people were affected out of this situation. 240 people were displaced and are accommodated in different shelters within the province itself. And only one confirmed fatality was reported from Johannesburg. And that we are continuing to conduct preliminary assessment analysis on the estimated cost that came from this. Next slide. And in terms of the summary of households that have been affected, I think we spoke to this. This is just to indicate where you will find this within the province as such, as it relates to City of Johannesburg, West End District, Sedibeng District. Next slide. Pictorial depiction of what happened in the province. Next slide. We made a request for the province to be classified as a disaster, and this request was submitted on the 24th of December, and we quantified the disaster in terms of rand and cents, and those are reflected in the table below as it comes from the Johannesburg Housing Department, the road agency itself, the City Power, Rainwater, Gauteng Department of Agriculture, Gauteng Department of Social Development, and it all came to the figure, the 486 million. Next slide. We then received the feedback which classified the Gauteng as a disaster, and they were just providing the details thereof as to what it means. I think the most important thing is the fact that it strengthened coordination, particularly within the organs of state, to ensure that there is an integrated intervention in situations like that. Next slide. The next slide, I think I've spoken to this, the effect of the classification itself. In terms of the current status, as indicated, we facilitated application of funding under the Provincial Disaster Management Act, and we also have appointed, National then appointed the MISA to assist us with the verification process of the matters that we raised with National. And the provincial JOC was then established, whose work is to ensure integration and coordination of all stakeholders that are involved. And the affected organs of state were further requested to prepare action plans, which plans will then be submitted to National in order to be in a position to mobilize available resources as in disaster management grants. MISA has approved infrastructure project from Johannesburg, roads and water, at that particular value. In terms of infrastructure project for about 61.7 million, and for the City of Johannesburg, it's about 9.3, which was approved after being assessed by MISA. As I indicated, MISA is largely assisting with the assessment and therefore confirmation of the damage that we are claiming. The City of Johannesburg has submitted the document which carries about 12 infrastructure projects for funding, and this was submitted on the 27th of March. And we are making an indication that transport from Johannesburg, Transport Department from Johannesburg did not necessarily make this submission, including the provincial one. So according to the MINMEC report table on the 14th of June 2023, 152 million has been approved for the City of Johannesburg flood relief. The PDM is currently awaiting a formal response from National and the confirmation on the date of transfer thereof. Next slide. In terms of this, we're dealing with the second part of the report. In February, we also experienced the heavy rains from the 4th of February and the 15th of February. Most notably was the disruptive rainfall experienced on the 11th of February 2023. The extent of damages include private property, roads, bridges, and informal settlement. The disaster also responded on this and activated both the primary and secondary responses, and also together coordinated the humanitarian support that is required, particularly for those people who were displaced and all of those kind of things. All regions in our province were affected by this. This will include the city of Tshwane, the city of Joburg, the city of Guruleni, the city, Sidibeng, and the Western municipality. And in the city of, in the district of Sidibeng, we're making a point there that there was an increase on the number of flood incidents with a rescue operation in some areas such as Everton. Everton is largely affected. In terms of the summary of statistics there, in West Rand, we are making a point there in terms of people that were affected, people were displaced, and fatalities, and that would go throughout the other regions. Sidibeng region, for instance, the city of Johannesburg, the figures are indicated there, the city of Ekurhuleni, the figures are indicated, and the city of Johannesburg. All in all, about 2,384 people were affected. Those who were displaced were 85. Fatalities reported was 3, and missing were 3. Next slide. That's a pictorial depiction of what happened in the province. Next slide. Continuing, next slide. In terms of our way forward, the Provincial Disaster Management Committee submitted a consolidated impact report to National Disaster Management Center based on the information and report received from the Municipal Disaster Management Center. The National Disaster Management Center declared the incident a national state of disaster on the 13th of February 2023 after considering the information and recommendation received from the province. Municipalities responded swiftly to the impact caused by the heavy rain using existing contingency and emergency arrangement. But I need to indicate that in terms of the actual practical implementation of this would be waiting largely on whether all those funds as submitted at the national level are being approved, sent back to the province for us to make those necessary interventions as submitted as such. Next slide. And I think that in terms of the recommendation, this report is presented for noting. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, MEC Kuman. Councillor, let's have the one of City of Tshwane. Colleagues, we have to note we'll engage both of them at once.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will ask Ms. Blanche to present on behalf of the City of Tshwane, and then, if you say directly thereafter, it will be from the Human Settlements Department. So from the disaster management side, Deputy Chief Blanche will present on behalf of the city. Thank you, sir.
We expect a consolidated one of the city, not different departments, because it's one city. So try to work out something that will give us a consolidated. We can allow you some 3 minutes. Speak to them.
Honorable Nyambi, I see that the speaker is also one of those to make an input into this meeting. Honorable Speaker.
The reason that made us to say it's always in order to have the relevant political principle to be part of the meetings to avoid something like this. In terms of protocol, we know that it will be good to allow you speaker, and then whatever that is consolidated will come after. So let's allow you that opportunity if you have your stuff prepared before we get sidetrack and spend time for something that can be avoided. That is why both of us, Honorable Frolik and myself, raised the issue of having political principle. You can see what's happening with the provincial department. It's simple, and that is why I even remarked to say, with our experience in going to other provinces, once we have the relevant people that are supposed to be doing this task, you are making our life to be much more easy. And now we have to start discussing what might even, this thing be avoided? I don't think it's necessary, but assist us.
Thank you, Chair. My apology. We have managed to get to a conclusion. There is a joint one. The one on the disaster management was actually dealt with by the MEC. It's very similar to that. So we do have one of our colleagues who will present a consolidated one. We've managed to put something together. So thank you very much.
Speaker, can you assist us also? Do you have anything?
Thank you, Co-Chair. I think the report that they are going to present is a consolidated one. That's what I know. Thank you.
Okay, we don't want when we get out and then we get some other issues that might create some problems. But if that is the case, let's have the person that will be doing the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm Sello Chiprom, the Divisional Head for Human Settlement Planning, and good morning to the honorable members, colleagues from the province and colleagues from the city manager and the MMC, and the speaker. Yeah, we can go straight to the content. Chair, the content, we have indicated the problem statement, and I think the bigger part was covered by the MEC, where we coming with these flood issues. We also indicated the progress in relation to the areas that I've identified. We were deliberate to indicate the areas in terms of the regions. Our city is divided into 7 regions from the administration point of view. The areas that you have identified as case studies are actually falling within this particular region. 5 and 6 would be the region towards the eastern part. The 6 would include your Mamelodi area. The 5 would include your Cullinan area. They are actually interrelated in terms of the issues relating to these flood issues, but also from the human settlement development point of view. Then region 1, 3, and 4, it will be your central city, which is region 3. Region 1, it will be far anything towards the northwest, your Rangua, or is popularly known as Mawika, Rangua, Mabopane, and Soshanguve. And we have region 4, which will be part of the Centurion. And these are the most, which were the most affected by the floods. And you'll have the other region, which is region 2, which is the one that is going towards the north. You were very much interested in terms of Ramothi, but Ramothi is also related to a number of areas there. You are Marogolong, you are Majani. All the areas that are broader Maskral, which the city have inherited in 2000 from the then northwest. Then from there we have the focus areas where we are saying in terms of us going forward, because it's the work in progress in relation to this response vis-a-vis the issue of the human settlement development in the city. We can go to the next slide. The MMC have indicated we in the city of Tshwane have experienced the persistent rains. I think it was from the 3 December to 10th, 2019, and that also repeated itself on the 20th of February. And this resulted with the flooding and severe damages of houses, infrastructure throughout the city. There were a number of people who were affected, but like we have indicated, the most affected regions at that time was Region 2, Region 4, and Region 6, which were affected. We had the 2 fatalities at that time in 2019, and based on the assessment done, we had 2,816 households that were affected, and then we had also 3,604 people who were displaced, which were actually accommodated in a number of facilities, communities hall, churches, and other areas. Well, in terms of the disaster relief, we got it from different areas, from the communities, from the city, from government departments, churches, and NGOs. We can go to the next one. Then the cross-cutting issues. Region 6, like I indicated, is in Mamelodi, is where East Africa is it. If you know the area chairperson, you'll realize that the area is landlocked. The furthest people are sitting along Mahalis Mountain, which are sitting next to the area known as Alaska Stoffel Park. So as it is, it's actually landlocked. There's no any land around that particular area. And the same is also applicable in terms of the land that is actually owned by government, both for Region 6 and Region 5. The only available land that is available is the one that you have towards the old Brongospruit Road when you drive towards Brongospruit, which is actually the option that you need to buy from the willing private sellers. Then the Region 2 is the Amanskral, the area that you referred as Ramothi. A huge part of that land is actually the tribal land. It's actually held in trust by the Minister of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And there are issues and disputes which made it difficult for the city to be able to proceed with the development in that particular area. And then we also had the challenges with the land and some properties that are still sitting in the asset register of the Northwest, specifically for Region 1 and Region 2. And you'll understand that part of the development, if you look, for instance, if you go to Spluma, the Spluma will then be able to say, for you to proceed with the development of any property, you need to be able to have the ownership of that property. You have the consent of the owner of that property. We are unable to proceed with the development of a lot of properties. The matter has been engaged at the different level, at the level of the province, at the national level, but even today we have not actually got a simple thing of power of attorney for us to proceed with the development of those particular areas. But Region 2 is also having a problem in terms of the water table. It's very high. And obviously, precisely because part of it, when we have inherited it, part of it was much more rural and semi-rural. It has this insufficient stormwater drainage, which make it difficult make it vulnerable during the rainy season. In Region 4, you will know the issue of Zingulu was presented. The bigger part of Region 4 is dolomatic. If you go to the areas like your Itirailing, your Moiplus, they are sitting on dolomatic land. And it's very difficult for us to be able to develop this particular land. And there you will have people, more or less 10,000 households that are still in the informal settlement. Then the other challenge that caused this was the rapid land invasion, which started mainly in 2013. And this was not just an invasion, it was an invasion where the people were sitting in the areas that are very vulnerable. I mean, areas which were the areas for services and areas that we know that are environmental sensitive areas. The East Africa Bridge is not only the informal settlement along that area, they are sitting along the Moratele River. There are also others. You are 77, you are Willow Farm, you are Mavuso. All of them, in fact, they started towards the 2016. I was still the regional head in that particular region. We went and engaged with the residents that we kindly don't invade these particular properties because they are very, very dangerous. This area is a floodline, and you will know, Chairperson, that in terms of the floodline, you will have 1:50 or 1:100 years. So we have engaged the committee. Unfortunately, they didn't do it. And we had a reference, because in 1978, the same thing happened there, to the extent that the then government of apartheid took a decision to even withdraw the entire C3 from the map. But unfortunately, the committee didn't be able to agree, and they went. And unfortunately, just immediately in 2019, we had that unpleasant incident which actually affected, which led to the fatality of the two. And unfortunately, the government decided to say they want to respond to it, despite the fact that already you had the backlog of housing in different areas. Can you go to the next slide? Then I've just spoken to the flooded communities for both 2019 and 2023. The 2023 one, we're still housing them in the Nalmabias Community Center. There are 148 there, because the challenge, like I said, the progress that we are making in terms of providing the alternative. We are also having a challenge, President, in terms of the undocumented foreign nationals and the issues of outstanding court orders. The undocumented foreign nationals, they find the refugee in this informal settlement. And they are there. When you go there, from our side, remember, we are responding in terms of the Section 26 of the Constitution. We are saying we are coming here to be able to at least give you the permanent stand. And when we relocate you there, we cannot take you from the informal settlement to informal settlement. We take you from the informal settlement to a permanent stand, either the service stand or the permanent stand, which would parallel to that be able to do the services. But when you arrive there, you find that many of the people who are the undocumented foreign nationals, or others are documented, which are not actually provided in terms of the constitutions and also in terms of our government subsidy. And that becomes very difficult, because even if you engage the National Department of Home Affairs, they will tell you that there are also constraints in terms of the resources, which make it difficult. The other part is the issue that is also facing us is the balance between the old informal